Chapter 12 is about two major subjects. One is doing good customer service. The second is the 6 steps in the troubleshooting process. The 6 steps in the troubleshooting process is really straightforward. You can memorize it easily. In fact, I highly recommend it. Customer service, on the other hand, is all about common sense. But as Will Rogers once said, common sense ain't that common. Let's get into it.
All right, so Chapter 12, Lecture. Let's see what the major points are of this chapter. There are really 2 major things: supporting customers and the 6 steps in the troubleshooting process and general strategies for troubleshooting. So, customer support and troubleshooting. That's the major items in this chapter. So what does a customer want? The customer wants you to give them excellent service and treating them the way you would like to be treated, okay? So one of the things I do whenever I call customer support and I'm mad, I'm ticked, is I will make a point of telling the customer service agent that I am mad about this situation, that I am not pleased, but I am not mad at them, and I try my best. I don't always succeed. I'm not perfect. I try my very best to not take it out on the person on the other side of the phone. It's not their fault, but I do want to let them know that I'm not pleased with the situation. So what are the traits we want to have as a competent and helpful technician? Well, you can read through these in the book, but let's talk about some important things nowadays. Listening without interrupting your customer, okay? Yeah, you don't go, yeah, I know what you mean. Here, get out of the way. Let me fix this. No, you don't do that. Active listening. You let them have their say, and then you summarize what they said to you. I hear you saying that when you go into this feature of Microsoft Excel, that your computer starts running very slow. That's a very good practice to go back and echo. That's active listening. That tells the user you're listening. Use proper and polite language. Don't get coarse. There may be cultural differences, and another big thing is to take ownership of the problem. When I have students who contact me or stop by my office when I'm at the college and they need to find a location or they're having a problem, even though it's not my fault and it's not my responsibility, I will help them. I will say, here's where you need to go. Or if I was just getting ready to get up and take a break, I say, here, let me walk you down there. Let me show you where this is. And by the way, if you have troubles there or you can't find it, I want you to come back to my office and I'm going to help you. Okay? So that's taking ownership of the problem, because somebody has a problem they've come to you for and they're depending on you to take care of it. Okay? What are some other traits that really jump out? Work with integrity and honesty. Okay? One of the hardest things to do is to have integrity and honesty when you make a mistake. Okay? If you don't know the answer, if I make a mistake, my go-to is, what I really try to do is say, I made this mistake, I'm sorry, but here is how I am going to fix it, okay? Or honesty, I don't know the answer to that, but I'm going to find out and get back to you, or let me check with my colleagues. Now, especially if you don't know the answer to something technical, and you start trying to string your colleagues along, like you're interviewing for a job and they ask you a question you don't know, the set answer for you should be, I don't know the answer to that. However, I can learn, and here's a situation where I did not know the answer to something and how I figured it out. So if you do that, because in a technical field, you're never going to know anything. You're always going to be learning new things. So working with integrity and honesty and looking and behaving professionally is paramount. It's very important. Okay, planning for good service. So most companies are going to use what we call tracking software. This is basically a database of service records. When somebody calls in with a problem, you create a record, you create a trouble ticket. The trouble ticket gets assigned to somebody. As they go through the problem, contact the user, work through the problem, fix the problem, they update the the database so that the call tracking software has a comprehensive record of this trouble ticket from the beginning all the way to the end, and it is searchable. So if this is a particular problem that a piece of software that your company has written or your company uses on your particular hardware, it will get documented into the tracking software that this problem exists and here's how you fix it. So the other technicians do not have to reinvent the wheel. So doing a good job on the call tracking software is very important. So it keeps track of the support calls. Like I said, it's creating a ticket, and the ticket stays open until the issue is resolved. And as we'll see later in the PowerPoint, who decides when a ticket is fixed? When it's time to close the ticket, it's the user, okay? Now, as a ticket gets older, that's where the supervisor starts looking at it and says, hey, you've had this ticket for 3 weeks. What's going on? And then maybe it needs to get escalated to somebody else, or maybe the supervisor needs to step in, or maybe it's a user who is not giving the technician what they need to complete the ticket. But anyway, looking at the age of the tickets is a way to see if something needs extra attention. Initial contact with the customer expects somebody who's both technically competent and has interpersonal skills. That is, active listening, being polite, being professional. If you're doing a phone call, make sure you handle the phone call professionally, identify yourself and your organization, ask for their telephone number, their name and their telephone number, and write it down so if you get disconnected, you can call them back, and make sure you follow your company's policies about information on that. So, of course, you open up, you want the customer to describe the problem. Technicians should be prepared to know the problem that has to be addressed and the urgency of the situation because it could be a high priority. I have got to get my PowerPoint presentation off this hard drive in 30 minutes. I'm making a presentation to the president. Okay, that is urgent. Okay, listen and ask questions, of course. Arrive with a complete set of equipment. Be prepared. As you ask questions, you can take notes. You can do this straight on your phone or on a piece of paper. Ask the customer to reproduce the problem to show you what's going on so you make sure you understand it. We do that a lot with remote desktop and remote assistance where the help desk technician can come in and join you on your computer and you can show them the problem you are having. So you want to keep doing this until you make sure you understand the problem because you want to solve the right problem. And of course, use diplomacy and good manners. So of course, it's important to create an expectation of certainty with the customers. You want a timeline. You want to give them an idea of how long it's going to take. If it's taking longer or however long, you want to keep the customer informed of progress. There's nothing more frustrating than if you have something going on for weeks and they're not recontacting you to tell you it's still being worked on. That can get very frustrating. It shouldn't hopefully take weeks. If you have choices with repairs, like it's a laptop that has a failed system board and the labor, the motherboard is $250 for that laptop and the labor is going to be $350, then you may want to give the customer the choice of we will transfer your data off this computer and you can get a new laptop. It's not worth putting $600 into a 5-year-old laptop. You have gotten your money's worth out of it. We can pull the hard drive out for $15. We can put it in a USB enclosure so you can use it as a USB hard drive. But remember, it's a 5-year-old hard drive, so it may not be the most reliable piece of equipment. So you want to give the user those choices about repair or replace and help them decide and give them the advantages. Empower them to make the decision, but give them the information to make an educated decision. So when you're working at a customer site, don't become distracted. Don't start doing your social media. Don't take a personal phone call. Don't start doing a bunch of instant messaging. And don't, if you're going to take a break, yes, you can go return a phone call, okay? Return phone calls from work, but keep it to a minimum. When you must excuse yourself, explain why. When working at the user's desk, be as unobtrusive as possible. Don't pile all your crap up on their desk and shoo their papers out of the way. Keep everything out of their way and protect the customer's confidential materials. Don't take over their mouse and keyboard without permission. That's somebody's personal space. Ask them, may I sit at your computer? May I use your mouse and keyboard to check something out? Don't use their personal phone without permission. That's not really a problem anymore because virtually everybody has a cell phone. Of course, don't pile your tools everywhere. And this one I really think is important. Accept personal inconvenience to accommodate the user's urgent business needs. And of course, if the user's done something stupid or whatever, don't put it on social media. Don't put your dissatisfaction with what your company has done on social media. Uh, you're just asking for it. When you're on the phone with the user, you must be able to visualize what the customer sees. Uh, Patience is required when dealing with the novice user. If the call is disconnected, call them back immediately. Don't eat or drink while you're on the phone. Keep the small talk upbeat and positive. If you got to put them on hold, tell them how long you think they'll be on hold and speak clearly and slowly. I can't tell you how many times I've had to call support or customer support, and it seems like they're from somebody in India and they have a thick accent and they are talking too fast. And they won't let me get a word in edgewise, so I have to finally speak over them and tell them, I am having trouble understanding you. I need you to speak slower and more clearly. And then even at some points, I have to ask to speak to somebody else because I just cannot understand the person. When dealing with a difficult customer, be specific with your instructions. Don't ask them to do something that could damage or destroy their data. Follow along on your computer. That's a good idea to do anyway to make sure you know what the next step is. And give the customer plenty of opportunity to ask questions and give them praise when they, not demeaning, but tell them, good, good, and keep them moving along. A lot of times they just need to vent. I'm very sorry that has happened to you, sir. I'm very sorry that has happened to you, ma'am. I'm going to try to help you. Okay. So compliment the user whenever you can. If you just really cannot talk them through it, you might have to try to see if they can get somebody else on the phone who can help, who's more computer literate, who can help. When the customer is overly confident, compliment the user's knowledge, experience, or insight. Slow the conversation down, but do not turn off your problem solving skills because the customer may have made a rash assumption about what the problem is, and you need to go through the steps from square one because the problem is usually the simple thing first, okay? We're going to start at the simple things and work our way up. Now, they may have skipped past those simple things or forgot that. So don't accuse them of making a mistake. Don't use a bunch of jargon, even though you think they're knowledgeable. But the biggest thing is don't turn off your problem solving skills. Once again, when you're dealing with an active customer, be an active listener. Do not interrupt them. Echo back what they're telling you so they know they have been heard. That will help them calm down. You might need to give them a little time to vent. Don't get defensive. But most importantly, know how your company, your employer, wants you to handle a situation where the customer is being verbally abusive. There are cases where you say, I am not going to be able to continue this call if you continue using this language and attacking me. I'm trying to help you, but our company policy is not to tolerate this behavior. So if you cannot calm down, then I'm going to have to disconnect. And once you've calmed down, you can call back later. So know your company's policy on that. Don't say things like, that's not our problem, that's another company's problem. I was once on the phone with HP, Hewlett Packard because I was having a problem with the webcam on my brand new laptop. And Windows has a feature called Windows Hello where it uses an infrared camera to scan your face to see if it's you and log you in automatically. And the infrared camera would lock up and quit working. And basically what HP said, rather than admit the fact that they had automatically updated me to the wrong video driver, because this problem began right after it updated my camera driver, they said, well, this is a Microsoft problem. You need to call Microsoft. Here's the phone number. And of course, it wasn't. And eventually, I was able to roll the driver back on my own, but the HP technician, we actually got into an argument about whether my camera had the infrared camera or not, and the technician did not know what Windows Hello was or that it required an infrared camera, and then I knew I had somebody who was just incompetent. Sometimes simply making progress on reducing the problem to a manageable state reduces the customer's anxiety. Who decides when a problem is solved? The customer decides when the service is finished. If I open up a ticket with our IT department at the college, they send me an email when they think it's completed, and then I have to reply and say, yes, close the ticket, or I'll say, no, the problem has not been solved. Now, that's rare. That usually does not happen, but occasionally I have had tickets that have gotten closed that were not resolved. Other good tips is to reboot the computer and make sure the problem doesn't come back, and allow the customer enough time to be fully satisfied it's working. Okay. If you had to back up data and format their hard drive or whatever, see if you need to restore that data. You better have backed it up before you did something that would destroy it. Review the service call with the customer. Explain preventative maintenance to the customer so they don't have that problem again. Sometimes you must escalate a problem up to the level 2 technician or to somebody with more experience. If that happens, follow through and make sure the customer knows you're getting connected. AT&T, for my internet at home, I can't tell you how many times they have, quote, transferred me and then I got cut off. Okay, they just dumped me off to somebody else, didn't make sure I got through, and then I got disconnected during the transfer. That is bad customer service. So that little extra thing of staying on the line with them until they get through to the next person, like the times I've had to call Apple Care or had a problem with my iPhone of some sort, and when they transfer me, they will stay on the line, talk to the other person, say, this is Mike Ken, I'm going to turn you over to such and such now. Here is Mike. And then they disconnect after they have me connected to the other person. So working with coworkers is getting along with the team. Do not be personally offended when somebody lets you down or does not please you or has a behavior you don't like, okay? One of the keys I've learned in life is learn to hate the behavior, not the person. You're mad at the person because they're doing a certain behavior. If you're in the cubicle next to them and they do air drumming against their desk all day long and you're sick of hearing it, you don't hate them. You hate the fact that they're doing this drumming, okay? So separate the behavior from the person. I once at Lockheed worked with a person who was very, very bitter towards the company, was going through a divorce, and they took every opportunity to say bad things about the company I worked for until pretty much everybody in our group was starting to get a very negative attitude on many things. So I realized I needed to step away from this negative influence in my life. And when I did that, I got a better attitude in life, okay? Practice staying good organizational skills, know your limitations, and be willing to admit when you can't do something. I remember as a programmer at Lockheed, same place, I was working on a set of code, a library code, and I was testing it, and I was getting corrupted data, and I was chasing the bug. I was putting all kinds of diagnostics into my code, and I could not figure out the data was good here, it was good there, it was good there, but when I got to the final place where the data needed to be delivered and used, it was corrupted. So finally, after days and days of trying to chase down this bug, I finally asked one of my coworkers to come over and look at it, one of the other programmers. And as I explained what I was doing in my code, just the act of me stepping away and getting a much bigger viewpoint of my code, I realized what my problem was. It was my last set of diagnostics statements had a bug in them. The code was fine. So it was rather embarrassing, to say, hey, George, go away. I saw my bug. And of course, then he could see the blood in the water and he wanted to know what silly, dumb thing I had done wrong. But I finally had the limitation that I'd spent enough time wasted trying to find this bug that I needed to ask somebody else in to get a fresh, clean viewpoint on it. So sometimes you've got to do that. Sometimes you've got to go to your colleagues and say, hey, I've got this really weird problem and I've Googled everything in the known universe and I can't figure it out. He says, oh, yeah. That's a program that such and such wrote at our company in 2014 and it's got this really bizarre bug. That's why you can't find it on the internet. But here's how you fix it. So it's not a bad thing to ask when you can't figure something else. Now, you don't want to be so needy. You don't want to be so needy that you're always asking for help, okay? You need to try to solve your own problems, but there comes a time when you need to ask for help. All right. Strategies to troubleshoot any problem. We want to approach the problem as an investigator, like it's a CSI, crime scene investigation show. Okay, you need to ask questions, and you need to work in a systematic method for troubleshooting. You will see these 6 steps over and over again in several different classes. How do we troubleshoot a problem? Step 1. Interview the user and back up data. Step 2, establish a theory. Step 3, test your theory. Step 4, plan and fix and resolve the problem. Step 5, verify you fixed it and prevent it from happening again. And last of all, document the problem into that trouble ticket software so it gets documented what the problem is so you could find it again. Now, as we go through the chapter, there are a series of 13 troubleshooting rules, and those are very good for you to look at. But as we go through this, troubleshooting rule number 1 is approach the problem systematically. So when we did computer repair in our CIT lab for students or faculty or staff who could bring a computer in that was not working right, we would do certain things systematically. The first things we would do, no matter what the problem was, is run a memory diagnostics to make sure there was not bad RAM on that motherboard and that the motherboard was working. Then we would run a hard drive test to see if it was a failing hard drive. And then we would run a stress test to see if the computer was overheating. So once that was done, once those 3 things were done, we had a pretty high degree of confidence that the hardware was good. Okay. I had a lab assistant who took a shortcut. They were scanning for viruses and they were finding problems on the hard drive and they were fixing the problems and there was more problems. And then, so we finally stepped back and we did a hard drive diagnostics and all the problems were not being caused by a virus, but being caused by a failing hard drive. The hard drive was going bad, so operating system files and data files were getting corrupted. So we needed to go back to the discipline of approaching the problem systematically. First, test the hardware. Test the motherboard, test the hard drive, and test for overheating. Now, of course, if you find more than one problem, solve one problem at a time. Okay? I remember once I got in a hurry with a friend's computer. It was running very, very slow. I mean, it took a day and a half to try to run Windows Update. And did everything, and I kept saying to myself, I'd try this, I'd try that, or I'd try a couple things at a time, and I kept saying to myself, I need to go back and reset the BIOS for optimized defaults. I need to go back and set optimized defaults, and I'd say, yeah, I'll try that again in a little. I'll do that in a while, and then I'd try this and I'd try that, or I'd try two things at a time. Just got in a hurry, and ultimately, over about a 3-day period, I kept saying to myself, I need to go reset the BIOS to optimized defaults. And if I had worked systematically and tried that first, what I found out is the CMOS battery on the motherboard had gone dead. The CMOS values in the BIOS had gotten corrupted. And when I set them back to optimized default, it started running the CPU at the proper speed. Since the BIOS settings had gotten corrupted, it was way underclocking the CPU, and that's why his computer was running slow. I was about to tell him, I think your motherboard's fried. You know, I think you need a new motherboard and CPU. And it just turned out I had not worked systematically. I had not tried one thing at a time. And you're not really saving yourself time when you don't work systematically. When you say, well, I'm going to try these 3 things. Oh, I fixed it. Okay. Which of those 3 things was the problem? Because you just did 2 things that were not necessary, and now you need to go figure out which of those 3 things you need to undo. So that's going to take you time anyway, okay? So do stuff systematically, one thing at a time. Interviewing the user. So what are some of the most important things to me? When did the problem start? What changes have recently been made to the system? Okay, what are you doing? Can you show me the problem? And this is unlikely, but was there a thunderstorm or electrical problem going on when this happened and it fried their power supply or their motherboard? Unlikely. But when did it start and what changes have you made to the system? Okay. Can you show me how to reproduce the problem? And of course, I'll let you read through all these on your own. Some other rules. Establish your priorities. Your priorities, first of all, should be, I don't want to destroy the user's data. Rule number 2, establish your priorities. Okay. Rule number 3, beware of user error. It may not be a hardware problem. The user may have made a mistake and is embarrassed and doesn't want to reveal it, or they don't realize they made a mistake. Number 4, keep your cool and don't rush. Like I said, don't try to do 3 things at once. Do them one at a time. Start the memory diagnostics, walk away, come back and check it 30 minutes later. Pass the memory diagnostics. Run a hard drive check. Watch the first couple minutes of it to make sure everything's good. It might take an hour to run the hard drive check and then come back in an hour and check on it. Run a stress test, get that CPU cranked up to 100%, see if it's overheating. Once all that is done, you can be working on other things while those are going on, so don't rush. Once that is done, then you can move on to the next part of the troubleshooting. Step 1 is also extremely important. If you're going to do anything that might destroy the data, or if you think there's a problem with that hard drive, you want to back up that important data. If that hard drive test, if you do a quick test of the hard drive and it shows bad, or you look at the smart parameters of the hard drive and it shows reallocated sectors and read failures, then abort running the test, because that hard drive has only got so many hours of life left, and you want to use those hours to back up the user's data. You don't want to use those hours of its remaining life testing it. Another analogy is if your car is overheating, you want to pull off at the next exit and get to the side of the road. You can probably drive a mile before you're going to damage the engine, but you want to get pulled over quickly. You don't go, oh, my engine is overheating, I'm just going to drive all the way to Dallas and then I will go to a garage and have them look at the problem. No, you're going to get 20 miles down the road and your engine's going to blow up, and then, multiple thousands of dollars versus pulling off the road, letting it cool down, put some water in it, and go have a $30 thermostat replaced for $85 of labor. There's a big difference. So you want to make sure that data is protected and backed up. Troubleshooting rule number 5, make no assumptions. Start at square one, which leads right into rule number 6, try the simple things first. So like if I have a student, they're rebuilding a computer, they put a video card in, they've disconnected cables, reconnected cables, and then nothing is showing up on the screen, first thing I'm doing is I'm listening for that power on self-test beep, which indicates the motherboard is booting up. If I'm not hearing that, then maybe the motherboard's not even doing a power on self-test. But trying the simple things first, the first thing I do is look on the back of the computer and make sure the HDMI cable is plugged into the video card and not into the HDMI of the motherboard. Because if you have a video card plugged into the motherboard, it disables the motherboard video, and you will not get a video signal. The video card, the motherboard, everything's working great. You've just got the video card plugged into the wrong place. So try the simple things first. Now, how do you know what the simple things are? That is the school of hard knocks. That is experience. So step 2, examine the system and make your best guess. So can we reproduce the problem? Make your best guess. And that might lead to rule number 7, which is become a researcher, or I could say use your web search. I won't say Google it because I use DuckDuckGo for my search engine because it has better privacy than Google. But become a researcher. Look things up. Go to the manufacturer's website. See if they have a diagnostic tool. See if it's a known problem. So you might be able to get better data by going straight to the Camtasia website on Camtasia problems rather than just doing a Google. They might have forums you can search, okay, that are not searchable by Google. Become a researcher, but learn how to be a better researcher than just, okay, I'm going to Google it, and if I don't find it, it doesn't exist. Example of a test. Test your theory. Video does not work and you suspect a loose cable. Well, check the cable connection, replace the cable. Recently, my brother's printer quit working and it turned out to be a bad USB cable, which is a very uncommon thing. But when he moved it to another computer, he didn't move the cable with it, and voila, it worked. So then he realized it was the USB cable. So of course you want to cut that cable up and dispose of it, so you don't accidentally ever use that cable again. Another example, DVD drive doesn't work. Well, that could be the DVD drive or it could be the DVD. So if you take the DVD to another computer and it works fine, then you have more evidence that that DVD drive is not working. If the problem moves with the DVD, then is it scratched? You know, you can even take the DVD drive out of that computer and try it on another computer and see if the problem moves with the component. If the problem does not move, then it could be an operating system issue. Troubleshooting rule number 8, divide and conquer. Isolate the problem by trying one thing at a time until you have isolated the problem. If a clean boot of Windows eliminates all that eliminates all non-essential startup programs, and then it works, you know it's something in the startup sequence that is causing the problem. Troubleshooting rule number 9, write things down so you can keep track of where you are. Take notes, draw diagrams, make lists, use your camera phone, etc. And rule number 10, do not assume the worst, okay? It's not booting, okay? I need to format the hard drive and wipe out all the user's data and reinstall Windows Clean. No, you might just be able to do a startup repair. It might just be a loose cable. So, you know, you pulled the hard drive out, hooked it up to another computer, and then formatted it when all it was a loose cable on the existing computer. Troubleshooting rule number 11, the operating system could have a bug, something weird could be going on, reboot and start over. If the problem does not happen again, you know, nowadays we don't reboot our computers. When you shut your computer down, it's really just hibernating, okay? So you could get to a point where an application or a operating system, part of the operating system gets corrupted, okay, and is not running right because of a bug. Troubleshooting rule number 12. Use the least invasive solution first. Try a startup repair before you reinstall Windows. Troubleshooting rule number 13. Know your starting point. Know where you were before you started doing the things you're doing. Okay, find out what works and does not work before you start taking anything apart. So let's recap these steps. Step 1, interview the user and back up data. Step 2, examine the system and make your best guess. Step 3, test out your theory to prove it's true. Step 4, plan your solution and fix the problem. Step 5, verify you have fixed it and take preventative action. Tell the user they shouldn't do that. Make sure there's a screw where there was a missing screw before so something won't come loose. And if so, instruct the user if necessary in a polite and professional manner. So step 5, verify the fix and take preventative action, which leads to step 6, document the problem so that will help troubleshoot the next time, because that's a searchable database. Those trouble ticket systems are searchable databases. You're putting it in the trouble ticket system so other people do not have to reinvent the wheel. They do not have to go through the struggle and make the mistakes you did to find out that was what was causing the problem. I mean, documenting this stuff, when you start to see a trend, such as we had a group of Dell computers in our general purpose lab in the CIT department, and 1 or 2 a semester was dying because of faulty power supplies. So the motherboards were okay, but the power supplies were conking out, and this got to be common enough, and it was put in the trouble ticket system, the tracking system, that the technicians would test the power supply. When a computer wasn't booting up, they would test the power supply first, because that was a very common problem with those particular computers. Remember, the help desk software records this information in a database. So troubleshooting applications, remember the problem might be caused by the application, but it could be a hardware problem. That's why we start out by testing the hardware. That's why when we worked on anybody's computer, we would test the RAM, test the hard drive, and test for overheating, and then we would start looking at the software. We'd start running antivirus programs. Programs can also crash because they have corrupted data. I once had a problem on a computer that every time I launched MS Paint, it would crash. And what I found out is a registry setting got corrupted that was trying to make it open to a screen resolution it could not do, and it would just roll over and die. So the solution was I had to go into the Windows registry, delete that registry key. The next time I ran Paintbrush, it would see that key was missing in the registry and write a valid entry into the registry, and everything was good. So that was the solution. It was corrupted data. So general steps for solving the application problems is interview the user and back up data. Look at the error messages. See if that program has a log file. You can go into the Action Center of Windows to look for error messages. The Event Viewer can also have clues to what's going on with that. Don't forget that, and when all else fails, when you've uninstalled the program and reinstalled the program, when you've seen if there's a patch for the program and you still can't get it to work, that it might be corrupted data. But one of the no-brainers you can do is uninstall the program and reinstall it, but make sure you install the same version, because their license key may not work with the next version. Step 4, suspect a virus. Eliminate the possibility of hardware, but applications can crash because of viruses. So run several antivirus programs, not just one, but don't forget it could be bad memory or a corrupted hard drive. Remember, a failing RAM or a failing hard drive can look like a virus. What if a part of the Windows operating system has gotten corrupted? Well, you can use the System File Checker to verify and replace those system files. You can also boot in safe mode and try the program again to see if it's something in your startups that is causing the problem. You could roll back to a restore point where you know things are good as well. Memory diagnostics will, of course, eliminate memory as a problem because memory can mimic a virus. Okay, how do you run Microsoft Windows diagnostic, memory diagnostic at the command prompt with admin rights? You say mdsketch.exe, and then it'll ask you if you want to reboot your computer, and it'll run memory diagnostics. You can also run memory diagnostics from the Windows Setup DVD, or if you have a bootable setup disk for Windows 10. Of course, this applies for Windows 10 and Windows 7, not just Windows 8 like the book talks about. But then you can go to Troubleshoot, Advanced Options, and at the command prompt you can run mdsketch, or you can tell it to run Windows Memory Diagnostic. So you need to know how to run memory diagnostic. To run the system file checker, you're going to say at a command prompt with admin rights, sfc/scan now. And that will scan through all your Windows folders looking for corrupted files. Now this needs to be a command prompt with admin rights. So once again, this is just something you can try and then see if it fixes the problem. It will not hurt Windows. So running Windows Memory Diagnostic, running SFC scan once, running a hard drive diagnostic, these are all things you can do to eliminate possible causes. When an application hangs, you can bring up Task Manager, Control-Shift-Escape, click on it, and right-click on it and say End Task. There are other things you can do. I'll let you read that. So when a file fails to open, Windows could have the wrong dependency. In other words, the wrong association. It's opening a file with the wrong program. I just ran into that on my work laptop. There was 2 versions of Adobe Acrobat Reader. There was Adobe DC Reader and Adobe Acrobat Reader. And the other program had priority over opening PDFs, and it had this really annoying side panel that kept popping up that I had to close every time I opened a PDF. And according to everything I found on the web, I should be able to pick a menu option to tell that to go away, and it wasn't there because that menu option was on the other version of the program. So I was able to change the default after I called our help desk, and they suggested I switch to the other program. And then when I made the other program the default program for opening PDFs, I could set that setting so I don't have that annoying sidebar pop up every time I open a PDF. So if you have a background service that fails to start, it may not be set to start automatically on computer boot, or there may be a program you need to reinstall. So if there's a dynamic link library, a DLL, that is missing or corrupted, it's usually fixed by reinstalling the program that needs that DLL. That's what I recommend. If the DLL is not registered, once again, I think a reinstall will fix that problem, and you don't need to go into component services or COM+ to fix that. So I'm going to skip along here. And I'm going to keep going here. Responding to specific error messages. When an application does not work, you should try installing the program with admin rights. So if you right-click on that program, you will have an option to run it as administrator. You can also click on the program on the icon and go to the compatibility tab and tell it to run it as if it's an older version of Windows. That will occasionally help. But right here in this picture, I know it's a little fuzzy, but they're right-clicking on the program and they're saying run as administrator. So that is definitely a skill you need to know. Of course, you got to have administrator rights to run it as administrator. A clue to something is amiss is the program may not be digitally signed, which means it could have been modified or hacked or corrupted. Unlikely. So summary, customers want more than just technical know-how. They want some people skills. They want you to be professional and friendly, and you need to set and meet those customers' expectations. And remember the 6 steps in the troubleshooting process, because you will see that pop up as a matching question on test number 1. I almost guarantee it. And that brings us to slide number 58 out of 58. So we have reached the end of this chapter. And as always, if you have questions when you're working on your study guides, answers to all the study guide questions will be in the book. If you're having trouble finding something or you don't understand, you can text me, email me, call me, or when we do our live sessions, you can also ask me in the Collaborate live sessions. And when we do face-to-face lab, you can ask me if you're having a problem on your study guide or quiz questions. So remember, you're taking the class from me, not a website. So that's all I got for you for this chapter. Take care.